So I think Elon might be a little bit mad with Trump, I'm gathering. The stock market was weird today, for sure. And we saw something very interesting happen. I want to go into kind of this sell off that we saw in quantum stocks, but I also want to look at other high price to earnings stocks that also sold off sharply, including Palantir, Tesla, and many quantum tickers that all trade at high PE ratios. So that basically means that the market is pricing in a lot of optimism on these tickers. So share price comes at a premium on these tickers. And we know that Tesla can move up and down very quickly. We know that Palantir has had a history of moving up and down quickly. And we know that quantum stocks have moved up and down with force. So that's kind of the game here a little bit. And it's why I've been saying on the channel, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, because some of these stocks move like crazy. So let's take a look at some recent news in quantum. Let's take a look at the Musk and Trump thing. I'll give my thoughts on that. I don't have too many thoughts because I think it's still a developing story, but I'll give my 2 cents. And then we'll take a look at some companies and what happened today in the stock market. Overshadowed by the wider market news and Tesla plunging by 14%, Xanadu today demonstrated a scalable building block for photonic quantum computers. So what that means is one big challenge with quantum computing as a concept or theme is how do you scale it? Because the computers at this point in time require a lot of cooling. They're difficult to scale. And we know that Xanadu is working on a light-based approach, photonic-based approach, and Xanadu has demonstrated on-chip generation of GKP states, error-resistant photonic qubits, marking a milestone towards scalable fault-tolerant quantum computing. The experiment used silicon nitride waveguides and custom detectors with over 99% efficiency. And there's still optical loss, which is a limiting factor. The result lays the foundation for modular fiber-compatible quantum systems and pushes photonic platforms closer to utility scale performance. So that's pretty exciting. Small headline here, but we see these popping up here and there. A $21 million gift will establish this Center for Quantum Biology and Medicine at the University of Chicago, advancing an emerging field that combines quantum tech with biomedical research. And speaking of biomedical research, we had another headline today. Quantum chemistry moves closer to practical use with solvent-ready algorithms, Cleveland Clinic researchers report. So a new study in the Journal of Physical Chemistry shows that quantum computers can now simulate solvated molecules, marking a step towards realistic chemical problems in biology and industry. And it looks like they did this work on the IBM quantum hardware for water, methanol, ethanol, and methylamine. So pretty exciting. Definitely always things happening in quantum. Now we also know that this Trump and Musk feud has really escalated quickly with personal attacks on both sides. I've listened to coverage from different media outlets and listened to the audio and given it some thought, and it does seem there is a high level of personal attack going on both ways. So one of the concerns would be, how does this affect Tesla, which has already been a stock that's been beaten up a ton in 2025, and Tesla has problems. They have declining sales. They move back timelines all the time. So we were supposed to have Robotaxi X number of years ago, and we're supposed to have it coming up here in this month in June. So with Tesla's financial struggles and some of the fundamentals being a little bit in question, and now Elon taking on the president and the president of the United States of America and all the power that Trump can and does use against adversaries, it seems like a risky endeavor for Elon Musk, as he is extremely wealthy and can influence politics for sure. But the president of the United States is the president of the United States, and that's a whole lot of power for the next 4 years. And that can make Elon Musk and his business and his contracts with the government much more tricky. And the deregulatory environment that was essentially created, or not created yet, but priced in for Tesla, since we just assume that Trump and Musk would be friends and stay friends. Well, maybe those regulations get a little bit more sticky, and maybe the robo-taxi rollout won't go as smoothly as people were hoping. So there's a lot of question marks, a lot of drama. I do think that Elon Musk is coming from a perspective of we need to reduce debt, and the bill that has been proposed would add to the debt, and we have trillions upon trillions of dollars of debt. And at some point, it needs to be addressed. Imagine if you just personally in your finances kept adding debt, adding to your credit card. And when you hit that limit, then you raise the limit of your credit card, and you just kept doing that. But for 20 or 30 years, just the interest on that debt alone would be crushing. And that's kind of where the US is. We need to focus on reducing debt and getting a little bit more balanced on our balance sheet as a country. So definitely a rough time for Tesla stock as well. And I'm just connecting the Palantir, Tesla, and Quantum tickers because all of them saw just really sharp sell-off today. And they're connected based on their high valuations and their high forward price to earnings. So let's look at the heat map today. And we saw way bloodier heat maps in April. We saw these, like every single box was red as red can be. We're still seeing some flat trading, less than 0.5%, give or take. Google barely moved at all today. But investors were very concerned about Tesla for aforementioned reasons. And I have a small position in Tesla, and I'm honestly concerned because Tesla's fundamentals aren't there. So a lot of the price of Tesla was assuming that Tesla and Elon was friendly with this government and this deregulation. So I think the sell-off is valid, and I think Tesla has a lot of headwinds ahead. So negative 14% there. And we also saw that Palantir had something like an 8% day, which is pretty unheard of even for Palantir. And some of the chip stocks like AMD and NVIDIA sold off. So it's just, if you were in tech, semiconductors, all these companies I invest in, and it was a rough day. Let's take a look at Quantum. So the Quantum watch list, we see a lot of sell-off except for large caps that only have kind of a foot in the race for Quantum, but they're not purely Quantum. So we see that Quantum Emotion broke that key psychological level of $1. LAES, which had been flirting with a breakout, is now kind of lower at the $3.20. Regetti is back in the $10 price point. QBT, which is going to be included in the Russell 2000 and 3000 at the end of this month, had a pretty sizable dip. QBTS, which has been quite resilient and defiant, had a 7.5% drop today, which is pretty substantial for QBTS. And IONQ also had a pretty good drop. And all these stocks were getting a little bit too big for their britches. So a little bit of pullback is healthy. And for the long-term trade, for the long term, it's better that these stocks are at a more reasonable valuation, because that's kind of the main criticism you hear, that is valid, that the stocks are a little bit high up there in valuation. Now, with that being said, I'm obviously not bearish on Quantum at all. But what I would say is, if you're personally concerned, if you have a lot of profit, if you've been in these names early and you're concerned we're going to see more price action like this, more 7-10% days, then protect yourself with a stop loss. You can go into your brokerage account right now and you can set a stop loss. You can stop out. I personally am long on all my investments in quantum. So day-to-day price fluctuations don't really affect me as much because my time horizon isn't next week. It isn't next month. It's years from now. It's years from now. So I don't have too much near-term concern, but we could definitely see more pullback, and that is a realistic possibility. Let's take a look at how that manifested for QBTS in the charts. So if we look at this 3-month chart, we see since earnings, you've heard me talk about it for the whole month of May, but we've just held this rising support. And today, D-Wave did break the rising support. And this does appear to be, or could be, a continuation of a head and shoulders we had called out. So a head and shoulders is bearish price action, and a bearish, essentially a pattern where you have this run up and then this sell off. So we thought maybe we were in a continuation of a rally and testing up higher, but now that we've broken and closed under this rising support, there is, and another thing is we have less volume, and volume is also pretty important. So if we look at extended trading hours, it dipped to 16 and found some support in after hours. So we are still at about 1637. So what would I like to see from QBTS going forward? I would love to see QBTS just kind of chop around $15 to $18. I think for the long term, that would be the healthiest thing for the stock. Now, what we also need to kind of draw out here is this lower high. Okay, we're going to connect the highs. So I'm kind of playing with the lines here a little bit with the chart. And what I would say is, what are the next stops? So the next stop would be 15-ish, 1520. We have a lot of support right at 15, or a lot of support historically, a lot of bounces, as we can see. The next level down would be this gap before, this gap fill. And that would look like something like 13. So if you are in any of these quantum names and you're concerned, then protect yourself. Again, I do believe the stocks, and I say it pretty often, they are risky inherently because this is an emerging and disruptive tech. So you take on that risk when you invest in quantum. Let's look at Regetti. So Regetti was also in a bullish uptrend and has broken pattern. And we are now in potentially a bearish reversal. So we do see lower highs being formed, and we do see some sell-off with Regetti. So will it find its support, some key levels to watch? We're right on a key level at 1090. A next level to watch would be $10. And we've seen Regetti kind of hang around in $7 to $10. That's honestly a pretty common thing for Regetti to do. So perhaps the rally is over for Regetti. We'll have to see. It's definitely broken the rising support, so we'll want to watch that price action closely. All right, LAES, which we have been talking about on this channel as recently as last night. So we see recently SEALSQ wanted to break out, but just got rejected so many times at this 388 level. It's lost a little bit of steam and closed under 350 today. So we are at a key level of support. The next stop would be this 280, and the next stop would be this 240 if bearish price action is to continue. And we can see that also in this ticker, we are posting lower highs, and the trend at this moment looks bearish. So in something like Palantir, which in 1 year has gone up 400%. In 6 months has gone up 64%. We saw today that the ticker had a absolute waterfall sell-off, and Palantir just got government contracts. It got NATO contracts. Every day you read about how Palantir got a new contract. So this company is growing insanely. And this is kind of a bit of so even in the past month, this stock has touched $135 per share and closed today at 119. So that just shows you that these high risk, high PE, and I wouldn't even call Palantir necessarily a high risk, but the valuation is very high, that the sell-off in them was just super, super aggressive today. And then of course, with Tesla, we saw an absolute, as soon as the drama started, we just saw this gap down and this unreal move to the downside. And let's take a look. In extended hours, there's been a little bit of recovery. So the dip has been bought a little bit, but it touched $273. And let's just measure that move to just show you how negative this sentiment turned. So 14% down on the ticker by the end of the trading day. Wild. Billions and billions of dollars just wiped away. And finally, we've been talking about Big Bear AI, and Big Bear AI had this really cool thing happen where they are getting more aligned with, let's see if I can find the tweet, but so Big Bear AI has joined as a Space Isaac member. And this is pretty cool. So long story short, I don't want this video to get too long, but Big Bear is going to outer space, or they're getting into the business of space, which I think is super, super cool for Big Bear. We saw an amazing enthusiasm this year, in the trading day. Just yesterday, Big Bear had a 14% day. And then today, an absolute waterfall sell-off, giving back all the gains and then moving down even more. So Big Bear, a ticker that we've been covering a lot on this channel, just gave back a ton of its gains. All right, guys. So the stock market goes up and sometimes the stock market goes down a lot. It's just kind of part of the reality of being in the stock market. So definitely always do your due diligence. Set stop losses at levels that you're comfortable with, and let's see how everything unfolds with the Elon Musk and the Trump feud. And let's see what happens in the wider quantum sector. We know that for a little while, we haven't had any major news in the quantum world, but that can always change tomorrow. That can always change over the weekend. And as this technology rapidly progresses, in the coming years, we're going to see more and more momentum and money in the industry. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon.